It was just another regular night in Alex's life, the kind of night that started with a simple routine: dinner, a few episodes of his favorite show, and then bed. Nothing extraordinary ever happened in his quiet apartment. He had always liked the calmness, the predictability of his life. He never liked surprises, but tonight was about to change that. Alex had just finished eating a sandwich when he decided to get comfortable and relax on his couch. He was scrolling through his phone, mindlessly checking social media. It was one of those nights where everything felt quiet, too quiet. Even the usual hum of the city outside his window seemed absent tonight. Alex didn't think much of it. He liked the silence. But then, his phone vibrated sharply in his hand. At first, he thought it was just a notification from an app. However, when he looked at the screen, his heart skipped a beat. There was no message, no notification. Instead, an unfamiliar symbol was glowing faintly on the screen. It was a strange, twisting design, almost like a combination of shapes and lines that made no sense to him. His thumb hovered over the screen, unsure of what to do. It wasn't a glitch, at least it didn't look like one. The symbol seemed to pulse, almost as if it was alive. Alex stared at it for a moment longer, his mind racing. He wasn't one to panic easily, but this felt different. Something about the symbol made his skin crawl. He tried to dismiss it, thinking maybe it was some weird ad or a prank, but no matter how many times he refreshed the screen, it stayed there. And then came the sound. It wasn't loud, but it was distinct enough to make Alex freeze. A low, almost melodic hum filled the apartment, vibrating the walls just slightly. He looked around, his heart pounding. There was no explanation. He was alone in his apartment. He quickly got up and checked the windows. Nothing. The city outside was still and silent. The hum grew louder, filling the room. Alex's mind raced. Was it a malfunctioning appliance? The fridge? The air conditioning? But it didn't feel like that. It felt otherworldly, like something was wrong, something out of his control. Suddenly, his phone screen went black. The buzzing stopped. The apartment fell back into its usual quiet. Alex let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. What was that? Was it some kind of weird dream? No, this was real. His senses were still on edge, his heart still racing. Just as he was about to sit back down, thinking it was all just a weird moment, the front door rattled. A knock, but it was a strange one. Slow, deliberate, like someone, or something, was waiting. His instincts told him to ignore it. It was probably just a neighbor, maybe someone who needed help. But the unease in his chest made him hesitate. Who knocks like that at this hour? Curiosity got the better of him. Alex walked cautiously toward the door and peered through the peephole. He didn't see anything at first, just the dim light of the hallway. But then he noticed something strange. A silhouette, just barely visible in the low light, standing perfectly still. His heart thudded in his chest. He knew that shape. It was a woman, tall, with a posture that looked almost too perfect. She didn't move at all, not even a shift, like she was waiting for him to open the door. A chill ran down his spine, and he stepped back, unsure of what to do. Should he open the door? Was this some kind of prank? Or was it something else? The strange hum from earlier returned, barely audible, but still present. Alex could feel it vibrating through the door, a low hum that seemed to call to him. Against his better judgment, he unlocked the door. Slowly, cautiously. The door swung open to reveal a woman. She was tall, dressed in a strange, flowing outfit that Alex had never seen before. It wasn't like anything he'd seen on the streets. The fabric shimmered in the dim light of the hallway, almost metallic. Her skin had an unusual tone to it, not exactly human. It wasn't gray, but it wasn't quite the color of human skin either. Her eyes were the most unsettling part. They weren't like any human eyes Alex had ever seen. Large and bright, they almost seemed to glow. She stared at him with an intensity that felt as though she was looking straight through him. "Are you Alex?" she asked, her voice soft but clear. It was unlike any accent he had ever heard, foreign but somehow familiar. Alex froze. He didn't know who she was, or how she knew his name, but something in his gut told him that this was no ordinary visitor. "Who are you?" Alex managed to say, his voice betraying the fear he felt rising in his chest. The woman didn't answer right away. Instead, she stepped forward, closing the distance between them. Alex instinctively took a step back, but before he could react, she spoke again. "I've come because you triggered the ritual," she said calmly, as though it was the most normal thing in the world. "You didn't mean to, but you did. And now, you have to follow through." Alex stared at her, his mind trying to process the words she just said. Triggered. Ritual. What was she talking about? And why was she in his apartment? Before he could ask any more questions, the air around him seemed to change. A strange feeling washed over him, something he couldn't describe. It was like the world had shifted. The hum from earlier grew louder, vibrating through his entire body. His heart raced. What was happening? The woman stepped closer. "You have no choice now," she said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "The ritual must be completed." Alex opened his mouth to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He didn't know what was going on, but one thing was clear: his life was never going to be the same again. The air in Alex's apartment felt thick, almost suffocating as the woman stepped further into the room. Her presence seemed to command the space, filling it with a sense of authority that Alex couldn't explain. He took another instinctive step back, his pulse quickening with every second that passed. The door creaked softly as it closed behind her, and for a moment, all Alex could do was stare at her. She was close now, so close that he could see the small details of her appearance, the metallic sheen of her clothes, the subtle shifts in her skin that made it look like she wasn't entirely human, and the unsettling glow in her eyes. She didn't look threatening, yet something about her made his stomach twist with unease. "Dilly, what do you mean? The ritual?" Alex finally stammered, his mind spinning in 100 different directions. "What kind of ritual are you talking about?" She tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing as though she was trying to figure him out, like a puzzle she had to solve. "The love ritual," she said, as if it should have been obvious. Her voice was calm, yet there was an edge to it that made Alex's skin prickle. He blinked. "Love ritual. Wait, you're not saying you're some sort of alien, are you?" She smiled faintly, though there was little warmth in it. "I'm not from your planet, if that's what you mean." Alex's mind raced. Was she serious? Had he somehow ended up in a bizarre dream? Or worse, was this some elaborate trick? But as the woman stood in front of him, there was nothing about her that suggested she was joking. Her presence felt real, undeniable, and somehow terrifyingly powerful. "Okay, so what's this about a ritual? And why does it have anything to do with me?" Alex asked, trying to gather his thoughts, hoping for some logical explanation to calm his nerves. Her gaze softened, almost pitying. "You triggered the ritual when you made contact with the artifact." She paused, watching his confusion grow. "The one in your apartment. It's an object from my species, one that carries a very old tradition." Alex furrowed his brow. Artifact. What was she talking about? He hadn't seen anything out of the ordinary, certainly nothing that would be described as an artifact. He looked around his small apartment, trying to spot anything that might fit the description. But nothing seemed out of place. Everything was where it should be. He looked back at the woman, his confusion mounting. "I don't know what you mean. I haven't seen anything like that." "You did," she insisted, her voice becoming more urgent. "You triggered the ritual when you touched the device. You may not have known it, but the moment you made contact, the bond was formed. You can't undo it now. The ritual must be completed." Alex's head was spinning. He hadn't touched anything unusual. He wasn't a collector of strange artifacts, and nothing in his life had been particularly out of the ordinary. Or so he thought. His thoughts raced back to the strange symbol on his phone screen earlier. The one that had appeared out of nowhere and disappeared just as quickly. Could it be related to this ritual she was talking about? "I didn't touch anything," Alex said, shaking his head. "You've got to be mistaken. I don't know what you're talking about." The woman's expression hardened, the glow in her eyes dimming as her voice took on a sharper edge. "It's not a mistake," she replied. "Your ignorance doesn't change the facts. You're already involved." She took a small step toward him, making the air between them feel even heavier. "And now you have a choice. Either you complete the ritual, or my people will take matters into their own hands." Alex recoiled, his heart slamming against his chest. "You mean you'll force me to do it?" "No," she said, her tone softening just slightly. "We don't force, not unless we have to. But if you refuse, well, there are consequences. Serious ones." Her gaze pierced through him as though she was trying to see into the depths of his very soul. Alex swallowed, his throat dry. "What exactly does this ritual involve? And what do you want from me?" The woman didn't answer immediately. Instead, she studied him as if assessing his worth, as though deciding whether or not he could handle the truth. "The ritual is a bonding process. It involves two beings, one who is chosen, and one who must complete the ceremony. It's meant to form a deep connection between them. The ritual cannot be performed with just anyone. It requires a particular compatibility." She paused, her lips curling into a faint, knowing smile. "And you are the one chosen." Alex could feel the weight of her words pressing down on him. Chosen? For what? What kind of connection was she talking about? "You're telling me I'm supposed to bond with you?" Alex asked, incredulous. He had never been the type to believe in the supernatural, and this whole situation was pushing him to his limits. But even as the words left his mouth, he couldn't shake the strange feeling that this wasn't some elaborate trick. There was something undeniable about her presence, something ancient, something alien. The woman nodded, a slight glint in her eyes. "Yes and no. The bond is not just between the two of us. The ritual will open your mind to a new understanding of our species and our ways. It's a joining of lives, a melding of experiences. You will see things, understand things that no human ever has before." Alex shook his head, feeling a wave of panic rising in his chest. "I don't even know you. I don't know what you want from me. This is insane." The woman took a step forward again, this time with a softness that caught him off guard. "I don't want anything from you, Alex. Not in the way you think. This is about something bigger than both of us. This is the way our species connect. And now, you are a part of it." He stared at her, his mind reeling. Nothing made sense anymore. He had no idea what kind of ritual she was talking about, or what kind of bond they were supposed to form. But one thing was clear. There was no turning back now. Whatever had started when he touched that artifact, whatever had drawn this mysterious woman to his apartment, was far from over. And Alex was about to learn that the consequences of denying the ritual were more dangerous than he could ever imagine. She wasn't going to leave him with just questions. No, this ritual would change everything. And whether he was ready or not, he would have to face it. Alex's heart raced as the woman stood before him, her eyes gleaming with an intensity that seemed to pierce through him. The apartment suddenly felt smaller, the air thicker, like the very walls were closing in around him. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion and fear. How had his life spiraled so suddenly into something that felt like a sci-fi novel? He had just been an ordinary guy, living a simple life, when out of nowhere, this strange alien woman appeared, claiming that he had triggered some ancient ritual. The thought alone sent a chill down his spine. He tried to steady himself, to make sense of it all. "I don't understand," he muttered, his voice trembling slightly despite his best efforts to stay calm. "Why me? Why am I the one you've chosen? This doesn't make sense. The woman's lips curled into the slightest of smiles, though it wasn't one filled with warmth. There was something predatory about it, something calculated. She seemed to savor his confusion, as if the puzzle he was struggling to solve was part of the ritual itself. "You are the one, Alex," she replied, her voice soft yet firm. "There is no mistake. This ritual requires someone who is compatible. And you, whether you believe it or not, are the one who has triggered the connection." Alex shook his head in disbelief. "Compatible? What do you mean? What kind of compatibility are you talking about? I'm just a regular guy." He ran a hand through his hair, trying to make sense of it. "This has to be some kind of mistake. There's no way I'm part of whatever this is." The woman took a slow, deliberate step toward him, her movements graceful, almost fluid. There was something mesmerizing about the way she moved. Her eyes never left his, and for a moment, Alex felt like she was reading every single thought that passed through his mind. It was unsettling, but he couldn't look away. It was as if something deep within him recognized her, even though he knew nothing about her. "You may not realize it yet," she said, her voice almost a whisper now, "but you are part of something greater. The ritual is more than just an event. It's a union of two souls, a merging of experiences, of lives. And once it begins, there is no going back. You have already triggered it, whether you wanted to or not." Alex's chest tightened. He took another step back, bumping into the coffee table, his mind spinning. "What do you mean, a union? This sounds insane. I don't know you. I don't even know what's going on." Her eyes softened, but there was still that glimmer of something otherworldly in them. "I understand that this is overwhelming for you, but you are not the first human to be a part of this. In fact, your kind has been involved in these rituals for a very long time, though you never realized it. We have watched over your species for millennia, waiting for the right moment. And now, that moment has come." Alex was struggling to keep up. Millennia, watching over humans. He was starting to feel like he was trapped in some bizarre dream he couldn't wake up from. This is insane," he said, almost to himself. "You're telling me there's some kind of connection between us, like some ancient thing. But why me? Why now?" The woman's eyes flickered with something like pity, but there was no time for reassurance. "You were chosen, Alex. The artifact you touched, it activated a series of events that led to this moment. You might not understand all of it now, but the bond has already been formed. You and I are now linked in a way you cannot begin to comprehend." Alex's mind was racing, trying to make sense of the words she was saying. Artifact. Bond. He couldn't remember touching anything like what she described. Had he? He had certainly come across strange symbols before, like the one on his phone. But this was far beyond anything he could have imagined. "Okay, so if I triggered this ritual, what happens now?" Alex asked, his voice shaky but filled with a sense of desperation. "What exactly do you need me to do?" The woman tilted her head, considering his question carefully. "It's not a matter of what you need to do, Alex. It's a matter of what you will experience. This ritual is meant to open your eyes, to show you a new way of seeing the universe. Once the bond is complete, you will understand things about my species, about the very fabric of existence, that no human has ever understood before." Alex felt his stomach drop. Was this a dream? Was he dreaming this whole thing? He tried to remind himself to stay calm, to think logically, but the more he heard, the more everything seemed to slip away from him. "And what do you want from me?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The woman's smile returned, this time with a touch of sadness. "I want you to understand, Alex. I want you to experience what you are now a part of. But this is not just about knowledge. This is about connection. This bond, this ritual, will tie us together, forever. There is no going back once it's complete." Alex's head spun. A bond. With her. He didn't even know her name, let alone what kind of creature she really was. He wasn't sure if he was scared, fascinated, or both. But one thing was certain: his life had just been turned upside down, and there was no way to undo it. The woman stepped closer, and Alex could feel the tension in the room heighten. She was close now, so close that he could almost feel the strange energy radiating from her. There was something ancient in her presence, something powerful and incomprehensible. She was unlike anyone he had ever met, and Alex knew, deep down, that whatever happened next would change everything. "I understand if you're frightened," she said gently, her voice almost soothing. "But you are part of something now, Alex, and soon you will see the truth. The bond will guide you. It will show you the way." She reached out, her hand hovering near his. "Trust me." Alex's breath hitched. He wanted to pull away, to run, but something deep inside him, something unexplainable, told him that this was no ordinary encounter. He was already involved, and running was no longer an option. He had been chosen, whether he liked it or not. And now, the real journey was about to begin. He took a deep breath and, with a shaky hand, reached out toward hers, unsure of what the future held but knowing one thing for certain: everything had just changed. Alex stood still, his heart pounding, as the woman's fingers brushed against his. The contact sent a shock through his body, something electric and primal that felt like it was stirring every cell in his body. It was as if the universe itself had just shifted in some profound way, and he was caught in its wake. He could feel the connection beginning to form, like invisible threads weaving between them. She held his hand, her grip light yet firm, and for a moment the room seemed to fade away. The apartment, the world, the chaos of everything happening. It all dissolved into a singular focus. It was just him and her, and whatever strange fate had bound them together. The energy between them was palpable now, humming softly in the air, a buzz that vibrated through the very ground beneath his feet. Alex's mind struggled to process what was happening. He had never believed in anything like this before. No alien rituals, no ancient cosmic bonds, no mystical forces. He was a man who liked his life simple and grounded. But now, everything he thought he knew seemed irrelevant. His life was no longer a series of logical steps. It had become a swirling vortex of unknowns. The woman smiled, her eyes glowing faintly, as if the connection between them was already beginning to affect her too. "You are starting to feel it, aren't you?" she asked softly, her voice like a whispering breeze. "The bond, the energy, it's alive within us now. It will guide you, but first, you must understand." Alex looked into her eyes, trying to find some shred of clarity. "Understand what?" he asked, his voice shaky but determined. "What is this bond? Why do I feel like I'm being pulled into something bigger than myself?" She tilted her head, a gesture that reminded him more of an ancient creature than a human. "This bond, Alex, is the heart of the ritual. It links you to me, to my species, to an ancient history you cannot yet fathom. We are not so different from humans, you know. In the end, we are both simply beings trying to survive, trying to find meaning. But our paths have crossed at this moment for a reason. You have been chosen to see the universe through a new lens, and through this bond, you will learn to see things as they truly are." His head spun with her words, each one a piece of a puzzle he couldn't quite fit together. "But I'm just a guy," he muttered, looking away in disbelief. "I'm not special. I don't deserve to be part of whatever this is." The woman stepped closer, and Alex could feel the warmth of her presence, the intensity of her gaze. "You have more to offer than you realize. You have a strength that lies dormant inside you. It's not about being special. It's about being willing to see beyond what is immediately in front of you, to embrace the unknown, to step into the darkness and trust that the light will find you." Alex swallowed hard. She was speaking in riddles, but there was something in her voice, something in the way she looked at him, that made him feel like there was truth behind her words. Something bigger than himself was unfolding, and whether he was ready or not, He was being drawn into it. "Now," the woman continued, her voice gentle but unwavering, "we begin the next phase. The bond is more than just an emotional connection. It is a gateway, a key to unlocking parts of the universe you cannot begin to understand yet. You will experience things beyond your wildest imagination. You will see the stars, feel the energy of distant galaxies, hear the whispers of ancient civilizations. But first, you must accept it." Alex's pulse quickened as he processed what she said. "You want me to accept it, just like that? How am I supposed to accept something I don't even understand? I don't know anything about alien rituals or cosmic bonds or—" The woman interrupted him, her voice softer now, but still filled with the same haunting power. "This is not about understanding everything right away. It's about trust. Trust in me, trust in the bond, and trust in yourself. You are stronger than you know. Your mind is capable of more than you realize, and this bond will unlock it. But you must let go of your fear, Alex. You must let go of your doubt." Alex's chest tightened. She was right. He was terrified. But there was something inside him, a flicker of curiosity, a desire to understand, that urged him to keep going. Despite everything in his mind screaming at him to run, to reject this alien woman and the bond she was offering, there was a part of him that wanted to take the leap. Maybe he wasn't just an ordinary guy. Maybe, just maybe, he was destined for something greater than he could ever have imagined. Taking a deep breath, Alex looked up at her again. "I don't know what you want from me," he said, his voice steadier than he felt. "But I'll try. I'll try to trust you." The woman's expression softened, a flicker of approval in her eyes. "That is all I ask," she whispered. With those words, the air around them seemed to shift again, more intensely than before. Alex's mind flooded with images, stars, galaxies, unfamiliar landscapes that seemed to stretch on forever. He saw flashes of alien worlds, of civilizations that had risen and fallen across eons. The weight of time, of history, pressed down on him. It was as though he was experiencing the collective memory of an entire species, of an entire universe. His breath caught in his throat as the images flooded his mind faster than he could process them. The woman's presence next to him seemed to anchor him, to keep him grounded even as his mind spiraled into the vastness of space. He could feel her hand on his, steady and sure, guiding him through the experience. The bond was real, undeniable, and as much as he wanted to pull away, as much as he wanted to scream, he couldn't. There was no turning back now. The ritual had begun, and with it, Alex's life was changed forever. The world around Alex seemed to dissolve further into a surreal blur as his connection to the woman deepened. The visions were overwhelming, more intense than anything he could have imagined. His senses were no longer grounded in his apartment, but somewhere far beyond Earth, somewhere distant, infinite, and utterly alien. He could feel the pulse of the universe itself, its rhythm vibrating through his skin, through his very bones. It was as if he had become part of something larger, something ancient, and yet entirely new. Alex's heart raced, and for a fleeting moment, he questioned whether he could endure this strange, cosmic connection. His mind swirled with images of distant planets, of strange beings that defied all logic and understanding. The universe seemed alive, teeming with life and energy in a way he couldn't fully comprehend. And yet, amidst the chaos of these visions, he felt an odd sense of calm, an assurance that he wasn't alone, that the woman beside him was guiding him through this unimaginable journey. "You are seeing it now," she said softly, her voice like a whisper in the wind. "The universe, the endless possibility. Everything that exists is tied together by energy, by the bonds we share with one another. This bond between us is not just an accident, Alex. It is a key to unlocking the true potential within you." Alex's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't deny that something was happening to him, something far beyond his understanding. His mind was being stretched, expanded, and it felt as though he was slipping into another version of reality altogether. The idea of humans seemed so small now, so insignificant compared to the enormity of what he was experiencing. Yet there was also a part of him that felt connected to everything, as if the universe itself was reaching out to him and inviting him to become a part of its grand design. "But why me?" Alex asked, his voice trembling with both awe and confusion. "Why did this happen to me? I'm just an ordinary guy. I don't belong in any of this. I can't even understand half of what's happening." The woman's expression softened, and for the first time, Alex saw a glimpse of something almost human in her eyes. "You think you are ordinary, but you are wrong. You have been chosen for a reason, Alex. There are many, many beings across the cosmos, but not all are open to what we can offer. Not all are willing to embrace the unknown. But you are different. You have the potential to see the universe in a way that no one else can. You are ready to see beyond the surface, to understand the truths hidden in the stars." Her words stirred something deep within him, a flicker of recognition that he couldn't quite place. The more he heard her speak, the more his doubts seemed to melt away. There was something compelling about her presence, about the certainty in her voice, that made him want to trust her completely. And the bond that connected them felt so real now, so undeniable. It was as if the fabric of reality itself had become more malleable, more fluid. He could almost feel it bending around him, shifting and adapting to the energy between them. "I know it's a lot to process," she continued, her tone gentle but insistent. "But you don't need to understand everything right now. All you need to do is stay open. Stay with me, Alex. Let the bond guide you." As she spoke, Alex felt the strange energy around him begin to shift again. His surroundings seemed to pulse with light, as if the very walls of his apartment were alive. The colors in the room began to warp and twist, distorting in ways that defied explanation. He was no longer entirely certain where he was, or even who he was anymore. The sensation was disorienting, but strangely freeing at the same time. "Where are we going?" Alex whispered, his voice barely audible as the room seemed to expand, stretching beyond its physical limits. "To the edge of understanding," the woman replied, her eyes now glowing brighter than ever. "We are on the threshold, Alex. You are about to learn things that no human has ever been able to grasp. You are about to see the true nature of the universe and the role you play in it. This bond, it is more than just a ritual. It is a transformation." Before Alex could respond, the visions began to surge once more, this time more vividly than before. He saw stars being born and dying in an endless cycle. He saw civilizations rise and fall, their histories flashing before him in the span of seconds. He saw alien worlds, some beautiful, others harsh and unforgiving. The energy from these places seemed to reach out to him, touching him, teaching him things he couldn't fully understand but felt deep within his soul. He felt his own essence being intertwined with these visions, as though he was becoming part of everything he saw. It was terrifying, exhilarating, and utterly alien all at once. The images shifted, and suddenly, he found himself standing on a desolate world. The sky was filled with swirling storm clouds, and the air was thick with the scent of something foreign and ancient. It felt cold and unwelcoming, but there was something compelling about it, something that called to him. And then he saw her, the woman standing beside him. But she wasn't the same as before. Her appearance had changed, subtly but unmistakably. Her features were sharper, more ethereal, as if she had become more connected to the very fabric of the universe itself. She was no longer just a guide. She was something greater, something older, something that transcended time and space. "You are seeing what I was," she said softly, her voice echoing across the desolate world. "I was once like you, Alex. I was human, or something like it. But through the ritual, I became something more. And now, so will you." Alex's mind raced as he tried to process her words. The images around him were overwhelming. But a part of him, The part that had always felt small, insignificant, began to understand. This was his chance to become something more, to break free from the limitations of his ordinary life. It was as though he had been given a glimpse of the truth of the universe, of life, of existence itself. But as the energy surged around him, he couldn't help but wonder, what would it cost him? What would he have to sacrifice to truly understand the depths of the universe? And was he ready for that? The intensity of the vision began to grow, and Alex's mind struggled to keep up. The world around him shifted once again, and he felt himself falling, not physically, but mentally. It was as if the fabric of space and time itself was unraveling, and he was being pulled into something vast and unknowable. His sense of self became distorted, as if his very consciousness was being reassembled in real time, stretched across the cosmos like a thread in the hands of a cosmic weaver. He could hear her voice again, though it felt distant, as if it were coming from all around him at once. "Don't be afraid, Alex," she whispered. "This is the final step. This is the moment you've been preparing for." But even with her words, the fear inside him grew. He had no way of knowing what he was truly signing up for. All he knew was that the connection between them, this strange, inexplicable bond, was growing stronger, pulling him deeper into something he didn't fully understand. What had started as a simple mistake, a casual interaction, had now become a force that was reshaping his very essence. And yet, despite the fear, despite the uncertainty, there was something undeniably magnetic about it. There was a yearning inside him, a thirst to understand, to become part of something far greater than he had ever imagined. It wasn't just about the visions or the alien woman beside him. It was the call of the unknown, the allure of a new reality that seemed to stretch before him like a vast, uncharted frontier. The air around him shimmered, and in an instant, he was no longer in his apartment. He was standing on an alien landscape, an endless expanse of silver grass that seemed to ripple in the wind, like the surface of a pond disturbed by a single drop of water. The sky above him was a swirl of colors he had never seen before, deep purples, vivid oranges, and shimmering blues. It wasn't the sky of Earth, or any place he had ever seen. This was a world far beyond his comprehension, a world that seemed to exist outside the very laws of nature he had come to know. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper as he gazed at the unfamiliar landscape. He felt the pull of something greater, something ancient beneath his feet, as if the very ground was alive, watching him. "This is the heart of the universe," she replied, her voice echoing through his mind. "This is where the threads of life are woven. This is the place where everything begins." Her words resonated with a truth so deep that it shook him to his core. Everything felt different now. The air was thick with energy, and the landscape around him seemed to hum with it. Every step he took felt as though he was moving through an unseen web of connections, all leading to a central point, a nexus of creation. The woman stood beside him, her form now shimmering with an ethereal glow. She was no longer just an alien being. She was something beyond that, something timeless. Her presence was both comforting and unsettling at the same time. She seemed to be both everywhere and nowhere, her essence blending with the very fabric of the world around them. "You've already begun the transformation," she said softly. "The ritual is complete. You've unlocked the power within you." Alex's heart pounded as he tried to grasp what she was saying. The realization was beginning to settle in. He wasn't just a bystander in this journey. He was becoming part of it, becoming part of something far greater than himself. The power, the knowledge, the understanding of the universe, it was all becoming his. But at what cost? He could feel the energy surging through his veins, racing through his bloodstream like a torrent. His thoughts were clearer, sharper than they had ever been. It was as if the very limitations of his human mind were being peeled away, leaving behind an unfathomable depth of awareness. He could see the threads of existence now, each one representing a different life, a different possibility. And he could feel them all, interconnected, intertwined, each one affecting the other in ways he could no longer comprehend. His body trembled as he tried to make sense of it all. The alien world before him was no longer a distant landscape. It was part of him, just as he was now part of it. The sense of isolation he had once felt seemed so far away now, replaced by a sense of belonging to something far greater. The universe, in all its vastness, was no longer a mystery. It was his to understand, to explore, to shape. "You can feel it, can't you?" she asked, her voice drawing him back to the present. "The connection, the bond between us." Alex nodded, but his mind was racing. He didn't just feel the connection to her anymore. He felt connected to everything. The stars, the planets, the very fabric of the cosmos itself. It was overwhelming, but it was also liberating. He had never felt more alive. "You have the power to change things now," she continued, "to shape the future. The bond you forged has granted you access to the deepest knowledge of the universe. But with that comes responsibility. You will need to make choices, choices that will affect everything." Alex's thoughts were spinning. He could sense the weight of her words, the gravity of the path that lay ahead. He wasn't just a witness to the universe anymore. He was an active participant, a player in a game far beyond his understanding. He had been given a power that few could ever imagine. And yet, with that power came the knowledge that everything he did, every choice he made, would have consequences. The responsibility was immense, and the burden heavy. "What do I do now?" Alex asked, his voice trembling with a mix of awe and uncertainty. "What's the next step?" The woman's gaze softened, and she placed a hand on his shoulder. "Now you begin the journey of mastery. You will learn to control the power within you. You will learn to see the universe as it truly is, and to shape your own destiny. But remember, Alex, you are never truly alone. The bond between us will guide you, just as it has brought you to this moment." The ground beneath him seemed to hum with energy as Alex took a deep breath, preparing himself for whatever came next. He had already crossed a threshold. There was no going back. Whatever the future held, whatever this transformation meant, he knew one thing for certain. His life would never be the same. He was no longer just Alex. He was something more. He was part of the universe, and the universe was now part of him. And in that moment, as the whims of the alien world whispered around him, he understood. He had not just triggered an ancient ritual. He had triggered a new beginning, for himself and for the universe itself. The world around Alex continued to pulse with energy, each beat synchronizing with his heart. The ground beneath him seemed to shift, like the very earth was alive and aware of his presence. He felt as though he was standing on the edge of something profound, something that had been waiting for him all along, hidden within the folds of time and space. This wasn't just a moment in his life. It was the beginning of a new reality, a new purpose. His very essence had been changed, elevated to something beyond human understanding. But as his body adjusted to the new sensations, a deep confusion settled in his mind. What exactly was he now? What had he become in this strange, alien world? He no longer felt like a mere observer of life. He felt like a catalyst, a force that could bend the laws of nature itself. The power that surged through him was more than he could grasp at once. He wasn't just a participant anymore. He was a creator, a shaper of worlds. "You are beginning to see it now," the woman's voice echoed in his mind, as though she could sense his thoughts. "The gift is yours, Alex. The power, the knowledge, it's all part of you now. But the question remains, what will you do with it?" Her words hung in the air like a challenge, and Alex felt the weight of them press down on him. He could feel the power thrumming beneath his skin, vibrating with the pulse of the universe itself. There was an infinite number of possibilities before him, each one leading to a different outcome. The future was now his to shape, but what path should he take? He looked around at the alien landscape, now pulsing with life and energy. The once unfamiliar world no longer seemed strange to him. It was as if he had always belonged here, as if this was the place he had been waiting for, even though he hadn't known it yet. The shimmering colors of the sky, the endless fields of silvery grass, it all made sense to him now. He could feel the universe's heartbeat in every part of him. It was a connection so deep and fundamental that it left him breathless. But with that connection came the responsibility to understand it, to control it. Alex knew that if he was to navigate this new reality, he would need to learn the intricacies of the universe's power. He would need to understand how it worked, how to wield it without letting it consume him. His very survival might depend on it. The woman, sensing his inner turmoil, stepped closer to him. Her form shimmered with a soft, otherworldly glow, radiating wisdom and authority. She wasn't just an alien anymore. She was a guide, a teacher. "You are not alone in this, Alex," she said, her voice filled with reassurance. "There are others, like me, who have walked this path before you. I will teach you, guide you, help you understand your place in this vast, infinite universe." Her words seemed to ease some of the anxiety gnawing at his thoughts. He wasn't expected to know everything, to understand everything all at once. He had time to learn, time to grow, time to master this newfound power that flowed through him. Alex took a deep breath, grounding himself in the reality of the situation. He wasn't just standing on an alien world. He was standing at the crossroads of his destiny. Whatever path he chose, whatever decisions he made, they would shape not just his future, but the future of the universe itself. The weight of the responsibility was heavy, but there was a fire inside him now, a drive to explore, to understand, and to make a difference. The woman reached out and placed a hand on his chest, her touch warm and comforting. "This is the beginning of your journey," she said softly. "But it's not just about you, Alex. It's about the universe. It's about everything that exists within it." Her words resonated within him, deep within his soul. He understood now that this wasn't just a chance encounter. It was the start of something far greater. The universe was vast, and there were countless mysteries waiting to be discovered. And Alex was no longer an outsider looking in. He was a part of it all. He was intertwined with the very fabric of existence. As the winds of the alien world howled softly in the background, Alex felt a spark of determination flicker within him. This was just the beginning, and the road ahead would be long and uncertain. But for the first time in his life, he knew exactly what he was meant to do. He would learn. He would grow. He would become a master of the forces he had unleashed. He would explore the depths of the universe and uncover the secrets that lay hidden within its vast expanse. And in the end, he would shape the future, not just for himself, but for all of existence. The possibilities were endless, and with that realization, Alex felt his fear dissolve into the winds of destiny. He wasn't alone anymore. He never would be again. He had a purpose, and now he was ready to fulfill it.